Hello, everyone. You are listening to the Multiverse Fundraiser. This is our Jeff Johnson Q&A, and we are going to have him up here in just a moment. But first, a word from the charity that we are sponsoring this year, Comic Books for Kids.
My name is Mark Weiss, and I'm the president and founder of an organization called Comic Books for Kids. Our complete and entire mission is dedicated to providing comic books to kids in hospitals and cancer centers. I've been passionate about comic books literally my entire life. I love the industry, I love the mythology of the characters, but I've always also wanted to give back. And it occurred to me that perhaps something could be done that would allow us to create an organization that allowed us to provide comic books to the kids in hospitals and cancer centers. And I asked them, I said, if we were to provide comic books to you, would you like them? Every hospital I called had the same story. Please do this for our kids. My goal at the time, a year ago, was to deliver 1,000 comics in a calendar year. By the way, I had no inventory. To 20 hospitals, which, by the way, I hadn't contacted, and bring on 2 publishers. That was my 2017 goal. As we wrapped up 2017, we shipped out over 8,000 comics last year to over 100 children's hospitals in almost every state in the country, and almost every publisher that is here today is working with us. Our community tab on our website shows stories from nurses, from children, from mothers of students, patients, children who have had their lives touched by the simple, small act of kindness of just giving them a comic book. The stories are incredible. You can't make this up. And if anyone had ever told me that we would be influencing people's lives by just these small acts of kindness, I don't think I would have ever recognized the impact. I feel very humbled and very flattered that we've been able to touch so many people's and children's lives. And I never thought the responsiveness would be what we are seeing. It's about letting kids be kids again. And it's about bringing comic books back to the kids.
Well, good afternoon, Jeff. I am Carlin Stuart. I'm the moderator for this panel, and we're going to be talking about animation and comic books.
Yeah, excellent.
So, I hope you're having a great day and haven't seen that bumper, man. That's what a reminder of why we're here.
I'm impressed by that. I think it's fantastic. I would love to know which comics are so great and it's such a long and huge medium. I would love to know which ones the kids are reading and loving, and which ones they ask for more of. I'd love to hear some more of those stories.
Well, I'm sure Mark Weiss could fill us in on a lot of that.
Mm.
So I know, first off, I met you at Memphis Comics Expo, and you were at the Heroes Alliance table. So you actually have a heart for charity, and let's just give a quick shout out to Heroes Alliance too, just because of what they do.
Yeah, Jim's work over here initiative is amazing. So one of the things that's tough about comics is that it's a career that you choose mostly out of passion. Right. It's not something, the hours are long and the job is weird, and it's not something that you do for really to get rich. And so one of the tough things about that is that a lot of comic artists throughout the ages then do not have much of a health insurance plan or retirement plan or any kind of emergency funding whatsoever. So one of the things that Jim has been able to do over here as initiative is create a fund and a charity fund and a support system for artists who maybe have to have an eye operation, or maybe run afoul of some legal trouble, or possibly right. So he takes care of comic book creators in whatever they might need, and it's a pretty amazing organization. So
the science fiction or fantasy writers of America have a similar fund because not everybody's a Stephen King.
I mean, honestly, it's there's like most industries, and I think the arts in general, the top 1% of artists are doing okay. And then the rest of us who make it a lifelong pursuit, like sometimes we're doing okay and sometimes we're not. And sometimes when we're not, we need a little bit of help. And definitely Heroes Initiative does that. So I'm honored to participate in that whenever I can.
Well, I'm thrilled I got to meet you at their table.
Mm.
I and just so Hollis knows it, he can look at the art in the background. There is a Galactus sketch, and that is the sketch that I got from him at
Oh yeah.
Memphis Comics Expo. So I definitely want to pop that up. Call it vanity, but hey, it's a
Sure.
nice piece that you did.
Yeah, that was a
Um,
fun one.
then so since you just mentioned the industry itself,
Mm.
let's just kind of talk for a minute about how did you get started in doing this?
Well, so when I was a kid, I moved around a lot as a kid. So I think on an average, I might have moved once every 6 months up until the time I graduated high school. So one of the things that I could consistently look for any town I went to was a 7-Eleven, and they would have comic books. So no matter where I was in the country, I always knew that I would be able to find some friends at a 7-Eleven, whether it's Peter Parker or Logan or Jean Grey or whoever was on the stand that month. I knew that comics would be there. And so I started reading comics. I must have been 4 or 5 years old. And so fell in love with comics very early. And then it wasn't too much longer after that I started drawing stuff. So I've always been drawing since I was a little kid. And then when in high school, it occurred to me that I didn't have many other skills. So I thought I should try and actually be a comic book artist. And my buddy and I did a newspaper strip in our local newspaper, an adventure strip. And then we did that for a year or so. And then I would just go to comic book shows and comic book conventions and talk to comic book people. And eventually I was able to break in the early 90s at Marvel. And from then I've just been doing comics my whole life.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then you made a hop into animation.
Oh yeah. And so comics and animation are super close. The skill sets are almost identical. If you can draw a comic book, then you can do most jobs in animation. So after my stint at CrossGen was over in the early 2000s, I'd moved back to Los Angeles. And as much as I loved comics, I kind of, when I was at CrossGen, I got a taste of having a weekly paycheck and insurance and a retirement plan and vacation days and sick days and all that stuff. So I kind of fell in love with that too. And I was lucky enough to make a move into animation at Warner Brothers Animation, working on the Justice League Unlimited show. So I did that for like the next 15 years, and I occasionally did some comic book stuff. And then about 8 years ago, I left Los Angeles and decided to go back into comics sort of full time. So now I do freelance storyboards and animation and some comic book and sort of mix it up. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So now I have the best of both worlds. Sometimes I have a real job, and sometimes I'm just a comic book artist freelancing my life away.
Yeah, you're doing the gig economy some days, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So, you just brought up something when you were saying you were at CrossGen, you
Mhm.
got the taste for a regular paycheck and medical and all that.
Right.
Um, what about the differences? Because I mean, we'll hop through some of your art here in a second,
Sure.
but Hollis, why don't you pull up a couple of the just the art pieces in the background, so we can see a couple pictures to talk about. But he's worked for Marvel and DC
Mhm.
characters, and you know, so I mean, right here we've got. Let's see on the side with the Superman-esque image. That's Legends of Supreme, right?
That's Legends of Supreme. I did that for Image for Rob Liefeld Studio. It was written by
So
Keith Giffen.
that is just an awesome piece of art, dude.
Oh, thanks.
If I'd seen that earlier, I'd been like banging down a door to buy that. I mean,
Thanks.
you have no idea what a big space nerd I am.
Oh yeah.
Um, so when and then you got more, then you got Shazam, and you've got Wanda for the
Mhm.
Scarlet Witch, and you've got Wolverine there, which is great. Um, what about the differences between working between, say, the bigger companies and the more indie side of the business?
So the drawing a comic book page is mostly the same, no matter who you're doing it for. So my job is pretty consistent. The difference is if you, depending on when you're working for them, you might be working with a friend of yours or someone that you don't know, a team. Um, I've worked at both Marvel and DC, and when I started at Marvel, they were still doing very much the Marvel plot style of script. And then when I moved over to DC to do some Green Lantern and stuff, they were doing more full script. So that would be the biggest difference I noticed back in the day.
Hollis, can you pull up his Green Lantern cover page?
But other than that,
yeah.
and for when you're doing for a small company, I think the difference is that you're not going to be reaching as many eyes for a smaller publisher. But yeah, so like I did Star Wars. I did an issue of Star Wars Empire, which was fun. But
that is so cool. I mean,
yeah,
you basically,
yeah.
I mean, they're playing cards, but you're drawing trading cards.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, and so I think the only difference there is that the print run might have been a little bit different. Other than that, the job is pretty much the same.
And I mean, the amount of, I mean, looking at that Doctor Strange over there, the amount of face work on that is just impressive.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I mean, he's a really fun character, and that was a fun alternate cover I got to do way back in the day.
And any thoughts on the Thunderbolts?
So I guess I just got Marvel just sent me the reprints of the Thunderbolts trade paperback, and I guess there's a movie coming out. Is that happening, or a show? I can't remember.
That I'm not sure myself. I wasn't a huge Thunderbolts cover, but I saw that and I was like, that's a good dynamic cover. I'll just grab that one to use.
Oh yeah, it's a fun. When I was very lucky in my career. Is like I was able to do a couple of runs on books, long runs on book, and I was really able to just sort of bounce around and do fun stuff. I got to draw Thunderbolts, I got to draw Star Wars, Green Lantern, Superman, Batman, Captain Avengers. I got to create some of my own characters over at Malibu. And then at CrossGen, I also got to create some characters. It's just been a really fun and kind of exciting career because I get to bounce around a lot.
So now, what characters did you create at CrossGen?
At CrossGen, I created a book called Way of the Rat, which was a kung fu action comedy, sort of based on Jackie Chan and other kung fu films.
And right when you were logging on, we had the image of that Japanese dragon that was from Way of the Rat.
Right.
Hollis can see that one right there.
Yeah.
We ignore the space shuttle, so that was not one of your pieces. It was errantly picked up on my part, but that's a beautiful piece of art for Way of the Rat.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that book was a lot of fun. My team was amazing. Chuck Dixon was a great writer, and I had a fantastic inker and Tom Ryder, and my colorist Chris Garcia, as you could tell, was just he had gorgeous choices.
Chuck Dixon's a really nice guy. I met him. I met him when he did the first Robin miniseries.
Oh yeah, that's great stuff.
Yeah, I mean, way back when. Yeah, cool stuff. Hey, Hollis, would you mind throwing another piece of art up, please, for us? The of course, you had a great run with doing Wonder Man, right?
Yeah, that was like I said, I've been very, very lucky. My first gig, I did the backup in issue 10 of Stalkers. That was the first job that Fabian Nicieza, my editor, and also a friend of mine, gave me to try me out at Marvel. And then he had just become an editor, and he was doing the new Wonder Man series, and he asked me if I wanted to try out for it. And I'd loved the character. He's always been one of my favorites, so I was super happy to do that. And then luckily, amazingly, got the job. So Wonder Man's my first real work at Marvel, and I got my own series, which was fantastic.
And I guess in the Negabomb there, I guess that's Wonder Man on top, and I guess it's Vision.
Yeah, it's Vision when he was white.
Yeah, based on So and then this is on me. We got a double hit on the Fantastic Four. One of them came out kind of glary, and the other was fine.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, that was a really interesting job. The idea of that job is that to take old classic Fantastic Four stories and revisit them, but not show what had been shown that Jack Kirby had already drawn, but show stuff that was happening to the other characters at the same time. So I got to play in the Jack Kirby Fantastic Four world, but draw different stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
So if they were in the middle of a street battle, instead of showing the fist throwing, you could take it to the view of the man on the street running in terror.
We could do that, but a lot of times too, if the issue had, say, Thing and Johnny in it, and Sue and Reed weren't in that issue so much, we could show what was going on for them that ties into the story. And it's a little man on the street stuff, which is always a good time.
Okay, cool. And we briefly alluded to some of your transition to animation, but I'm assuming that you had friends that were already there, and you were just talking, and opportunities arose.
Well, it's actually here's one of the things where the name Johnson actually worked out totally in my benefit. So my buddy Dave Johnson was working as a background artist on Justice League Unlimited, and he was moving on to become the designer of Ben 10. And so there was a slot open at Justice League, and they needed a background guy. And I'm pretty good at backgrounds, not as good as Dave, but I was okay. And I went in, I tested for the job. I knew he was leaving. He gave them my name, and they liked what I did. And I just moved into his cubicle. They didn't even change the name on the door.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how I got into that. I mean, it really is who you know, and it's a helpful if they're your friend and they're also named Johnson. But that's how I got into animation, and that's I just stayed in it for a while.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I mean, on the side, I run a group for people that are in career transition. So I love hearing the transition stories, and that one's incredibly smooth.
Oh, super lucky. Well, I mean, I had the benefit of Sean McLaughlin was the guy who was in charge. He was one of the producers on the show, and we were friends, and we had worked on stuff earlier in the 90s. We had done some comic book stuff together, and he used to write for DC, and we did some Johnny Quest together. So we knew each other.
Ooh, Johnny Quest.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
look at the age here. I love Johnny Quest.
Yeah. It was that era where Johnny was a little bit older, and it's some great stuff. If you can find those old Johnny Quest stuff, I think it's good times.
I was buying those.
Oh, really? Oh, so I did the one where they go back in time and they get chased by dinosaurs, and I also did the one where the clone of Rex meets himself when they have a fight, and so it's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah. So so I already knew the guy in charge, and then Dave gave me a good recommendation, and that's pretty good when the guy leaving the slot says that there's someone who can do the slot pretty well. So it certainly helps. But I mean, mostly just lucky, really.
Well, but you also had several years of skill under your belt too.
I do draw okay. Yeah.
So if you heard that, I have a teenager running down the hall squealing and bleeding. So we just alluded to I mean, when you said Johnny Quest, I lit up. So what items inspired you? What I mean, you said, hey, you're moving a lot. You're finding Peter Parker on the spinner rack. But what artists, what movies, what writers inspired you when you were a kid?
Well, specifically in comics, when I was a kid, I fell in love with one of the books I found early on was a very small paperback reprint of the Gil Kane Starhawk stuff. And so that was yeah, he's amazing. And so anything Gil Kane had ever done, I picked up whenever I could. So a Superman, a Green Lantern, a Sword of the Atom, right? All the Gil Kane stuff. And so I studied Gil Kane, and then I obviously John Byrne, George Perez, the guys who were doing, like, I loved John Romita Jr. I love John Buscema. Another one of the books I found back in the day was, like, I had the first Savage Sword of Conan. And I had already read
Man, now that there's some art right there.
Oh yeah, the
Savage
stuff is
Quarter.
incredible. Yeah, it's stunning. And so I discovered that stuff on my own, and uh, then I just backtracked from John Buscema Conan. I backtracked to Hal Foster, and then from Hal Foster, and then from Conan. But then the other shots from Conan, you discover Frank Frazetta, and so now you're in Frank Frazetta. Now that you've been introduced to Frank Frazetta, now you know Roy Crinkle and Al Williamson, and so now
What,
you know
Alex Raymond?
Alex, right? And then you have all the Sunday paper strips, all the Bern Hogarth
Mhm.
Tarzans and the Alex Raymond, Flash Gordon. So I discovered all that stuff way back in the 70s, and so um, that was the stuff that I was copying and looking at and learning how to draw from. And then when I was, I think even before I got into high school, maybe I was a freshman. So I went to a thing called the Creation Con, which was a small comic book show that had in Northern California, and I met Art Adams at that show.
Okay.
I mean, he was just breaking in. I think he was just. I mean, Longshot hadn't even come out yet, and I entered an art contest where I had drawn my version of a Frank Frazetta centaur. It was bad. It was real bad. I think I was 13, but it was good. It was it was. I don't have it anymore, but it was bad. But it was good enough to win the prize of the art contest, which was the Al Williamson art book. And so it had a bunch of his stuff, obviously his stuff in it, but it also had a bunch of other artists in it that he was inspired by, like guys like Lou Fine and so I was able to then backtrack even more, sort of develop my understanding of very old school drawing, and which includes some pretty serious fundamentals when it comes to storytelling. So I was already learning how to tell a decent story. And then when I started to break into comics and I met Fabian Nicieza, and he was an incredible help because he gave me basically a list of movies and directors to study. Um, Obviously Spielberg, Kurosawa, like just guys who made great shot choices. And so studying those films and just like, oh, well, why did Spielberg pick this long shot? Why is this an over the shoulder shot? Why? Learning basically the math of storytelling was something that I then spent my teenage years doing and getting a handle on it. And so when I broke in, I think I was 22, 23 maybe. I had been studying just the basics of storytelling for a long time. So that's back in the day, when I broke in, like the early 90s, like that was your storytelling was more important than your drawing.
What was the first TV series you remember really diving into?
The first TV series, probably Space 1999.
Oh, dude, you and I are kids.
Right. Like that's the one that, I mean, apart from like, your classics like the Tarzan, Batman TV show, Super Friends, that kind of thing. Like Space 1999, I think was my first, like, I was a fan of that show.
So on the on Space 1999, they actually consulted with NASA on the
Really?
design of those. Yeah,
Oh,
I
nice.
mean,
The Eagles? I love
the
those.
Eagles, look
Yeah.
at the design of the eagle.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of got like a little bit of like a hawk beak capsule
Mhm.
to it,
Right.
but it's a capsule. It's a
Oh, right.
two-man
Yeah.
capsule. It was ejectable. It could go on its own.
Yeah.
And Star Trek, you got nice and sleek
Yeah.
ships. All the holes are smooth, but on those, there were girders.
Yeah.
Easy access. You weren't worried about aerodynamics. Anyway,
Yeah.
it is just an aside.
Oh no,
Um,
I love that show.
it was great.
Yeah.
Well, and what was it? Michelle, that I forget the lady's. It was the lady that played Maya. Her last
Oh,
name was Shell.
oh
I mean,
yeah.
who didn't have a crush on her?
I mean, so it was the preteen years were pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we've talked a little bit about influences and things like that. Um, what project have you been really, really proud of?
Um, So I'm pretty proud of most of the stuff I've done. I've been, like I said, I've been really lucky and got to work on great things. I did a Green Lantern annual that it's basically Green Lantern gets sucked into this fantasy painting. It's basically a Frank Frazetta style painting. So he gets sucked into this painting. It turns out there's a whole universe inside this painting that is John Carter, Warlord of Mars, Scarteris, Hollow Earth. It's got monsters and magic and under like floating cities, and it's all that fantasy stuff, all that Flash Gordon stuff that I grew up reading. And so I got to design an entire Flash Gordon style world for this annual. And so the story is he goes in.
You design the forests and you
Oh yeah, I
design
designed it.
the
I
floating
designed the
cities
trees.
and
I did all the cities. I did everything. I spent a lot of time designing all that stuff because to me it was a love
nice.
letter to all that Al Williamson, Flash Gordon stuff that I had been reading ever since I was a kid. And so it came out, and everyone seemed it was pretty popular. I mean, it wasn't huge, but people liked it, and it definitely scratched an itch for me and the writer, and one day so I was just happy with it, just in general. And then one day the editor of Green Lantern called and said, "Hey, I just got a call from Al Williamson, and he saw your Green Lantern issue, and he wanted me to tell you he really liked it."
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's one of the all-time greatest moments I've ever had.
That's when you
So
go, "Would you sign one for me,
yeah,
please?"
so I mean, it was just an incredible moment. I'm very thankful that he was such a kind, gracious man to reach out and make a kid's dreams come true like that. But it was validating for sure.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, we are on the halfway mark. So
Okay.
Hollis, let's have you do a reintro of our charity and we'll reset the panel. When we come back, we'll start talking animation and
Okay.
go through some more art pictures.
Sure.
And this is what we do. We do this every day. On Christmas Day, I was getting emails from hospitals. On Christmas Day, I was responding. Sickness doesn't take a break. We are there for the hospitals. We are there for the kids. We will do whatever we can do. And as I look and talk to you, and I talk to all the people who are watching this, be a part of this. However you want to be a part of this, be a part of it. If you can send us $5, send us $5. If you can send us 5 comic books, a Funko Pop, a toy, a children's book, send it to us. However you want to make a difference. Make a difference, because we're all in this together. And here's the cool news. Nobody knows who I am. And here's why. When we give these materials to the hospitals give it to the kids and the parents. Comic book for kids and my name never shows up. When this stuff goes to the military, when my comic shops send the pallets, my name is never there. And that's great. That's all right. Because it's not, as I said, about us. It's not about promoting who we are. It's about all of us together in the industry making a difference for so many. And that's what we're about, Kelly, and that's what we do every single day of the year.
Excellent.
All right. And Hollis, I just sent you a quick note looking for a specific piece of art. There's a Galactus holding the Earth sketch out there. Yeah, we got to pop that up.
Sure.
So this is Carlin Stuart and this is Jeff Johnson, and we are talking comics and animation.
Mhm.
And right now, let's see. You want to talk about what? Brave and the Bold?
Sure. That was my
Or
first storyboard gig. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about Brave and the Bold. And
All right.
Hollis can find that one too. Okay, well, here is Batman Brave and the Bold, one of the covers for one of the sections.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like, oh yeah, and you did All-Star Superman too.
I did.
And that's looks like some Young Justice.
Yeah, those are some boards from Young Justice.
Young Justice.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, so I got into animation doing backgrounds, and one of the things that's interesting about animation versus comics is that in comics you do everything. You lay this page out, you draw all the characters, you draw all the props, you draw all the backgrounds, you do all the storytelling, you do all the expressions and all the designs, and basically you're a one-man show, except for when the inker and the colors come in. And so when I got into animation, I got in as a background designer, which is just drawing backgrounds. And I had learned how to draw backgrounds. I learned the fundamentals of perspective, and I'd learned how to set a scene and draw basically the right elements for a story. Like like if you're drawing Spider-Man, you're drawing New York. If you're drawing Daredevil, you're definitely going to be drawing a water tower, right? Like if you're drawing Galactus, you're going to draw some science, some spaceship stuff, right? So I had learned to do all that stuff relatively functionally. I mean, I could get the job done. But then when you get into animation, it's like there's a jack of all trade, master of none kind of approach to drawing comics. But in animation, these guys are the best at the thing that they do. So Dave Johnson is an amazing background artist and designer. Like he comes up with super cool stuff. And all the guys working at Warner Bros. At the time there's not many comic book guys in animation. They specialize pretty early. So I learned more about drawing backgrounds in that one job that I had than I had in my entire career beforehand, because it was just the only thing that I did. And I finished out Young Justice doing backgrounds on that. And then my next job was going to be on the Boondocks as a background artist again. And it was a different kind of show. And it was much more suburban. It was more architecture. It was houses. It wasn't anything fanciful. So I was really excited about really honing my craft as a good background artist.
Oh,
Right
well,
there, some of the
we just got the Batman storyboards. And it
right.
looks like I guess that's the Phantom Stranger.
No, it's the
The
question.
question. The
Yeah, it's the question. Yeah, that was
What-
so then I did so just to finish up with Boondocks. So I did
Yeah,
Boondocks. I was supposed to be a background designer,
there we go.
but they needed someone who could draw likenesses, and I had done a bunch of Star Wars stuff and advertising stuff, so I was okay at drawing likenesses because the show was very likeness heavy. And since they couldn't really find anyone to do those likenesses in the style that they wanted, they asked me to try it, and then I did character, and I moved over to characters, and I left backgrounds, and now I was a character guy, and I did that for a super long time. And then at one point, the chance came up to start doing storyboards and my first gig was that Question story. So Question goes to Apocalypse to solve a mystery. Batman sends him there, and he winds up fighting Calabac and a bunch of parademons. And it's still to this day, I think, my favorite storyboard, because it was so much fun. He gets chased by big wolves, and he runs around Apocalypse, and he jumps into a hell pit at the end. It's a really fun, like 4 or 5 minutes of story and animation. And then once I was in storyboards, I've kind of been in storyboards the whole time after that. So
Well, and then to the far left over there was a storyboard. It looks like the question is
yeah.
getting flipped.
Oh
And
yeah.
I grabbed that one just because I like the dynamics that was showing the throw.
Oh, that is the Riddler being flipped.
Oh, the Riddler.
Yeah. So I did a few episodes of Batman Brave and the Bold, and then I did Young Justice, and then I did a bunch of Transformers stuff, and then I did a bunch of Batman DVDs, and then I did some Harley Quinn not too long ago, I guess a couple years ago.
Well, now here's your Transformer Prime.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really nice piece.
Oh, thanks. That's a bunch of storyboards put together, so you can kind of see, you can kind of see what it all looks like. You know, when you're trying to do a board, you want to set, you pick the angles and you put the figure work in. And luckily on a show like Prime, which was a CG show, I could fudge a lot of the details and didn't have to put in all of the Transformer stuff, because that would have taken forever.
That there's I guess, moving from comics to animation, because now you're going from static to more of a fluid dynamic. I mean, because in a comic, you can say throw a punch, and then in the next cell block of the page, you're showing the XYZ villain getting up out of a stack of boxes because they're on the
Right.
ground.
Right.
But when it comes to the animation, you've actually got to kind of think about the placement of where the characters are, and does it flow across will it flow across the screen?
Yeah, it's a different kind of storytelling. I get asked this question a lot about what the difference between drawing for animation and drawing for comics is, and it's a simple answer. It's just it's the way you perceive time, right? Because what work the gutters do in a comic, the gutters allow you to time travel from one panel to the next, and in between that panel, in your mind, you fill in the spaces that you fill in the events that you didn't see. So in your mind, you draw the stuff that I don't draw. Like if drawing like Optimus punching the Predaking, right? In one panel he'll hit him, and then you're right, in the next panel he'll be landing somewhere. In your mind, you'll fill in all that stuff that happens in between. But when you're doing animation, you actually have to draw all that stuff. So
you have to show the legs being taken off the ground and flying backwards through the air.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Hollis, can you throw up another little piece of art for us, please?
Oh, fun.
And oh yeah, there you go. Nice Spider-Man that you sent us to use.
Oh, thanks.
So what about your work on Spider-Man?
So I did a few issues of I've drawn Spider-Man a bunch of times for Marvel. I got paid to do the book. The Amazing Spider-Man, I think it's 376, 377, and that was just a dream come true. I love that. I've always loved that character. And he shows up occasionally in Wonder Man and some other Marvel stuff that I've done. But like actually drawing his book was an incredible dream come true. Like I was over the moon. I love the idea so much. I actually moved to New York for a couple months and lived in a really crappy apartment because I was a suburban boy. I was a California boy for the most part, and I had no idea that when I finally got to New York, I finally understood what swinging. I'm like, oh, of course you would swing. This makes a lot of sense because I never been under buildings that were so tall. So
yeah, because he's in these canyons.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I love Spider-Man, and so I've been lucky enough to draw him a couple times in his book. But then I draw him all the time just for fun. And this was one of the commissions I did over the years of Spider-Man that I just drew for fun and sold it.
All right.
Yeah.
Want to throw up another one, Hollis? Oh, here we go.
Right. So after I did Boondocks, and I was doing characters on Boondocks, my next gig was a Spectacular Spider-Man. I don't remember if you remember that cartoon. And I did a lot of character help on that. I did some storyboards, storyboard revision, and some characters on Spider-Man. I kind of bounced around a little bit, and that is a turn I did of Sean Galloway's original Spider-Man design to show them how I would do it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Now, you've got a Hollis was throwing one more up. I think it was G.I. Joe.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember that it was a really great G.I. Joe story called Resolute?
Okay. I wasn't a big buyer of G.I. Joe, but
this was an animated series.
Yeah.
And
okay.
So this is one of the things you do when you're a character artist. So the lead character designer will hand you a pose and a drawing of the character, like that one on the far left with his arm up, and then your job as the support character artist is to turn that character in space so that when he goes overseas to be animated, the animators know what he looks like from every angle. So, and you want to make it so it spins smoothly, but still shows everything from every angle. So that's just one of the turns I did for the G.I. Joe show.
Okay, cool. And while Hollis is finding another image, I from when we were talking earlier, you've got a Kickstarter project that's in process right now.
Oh yeah. So we reached our goal. I'm now in the process of getting it printed. and I'll be getting out all the notices to all of our supporters pretty soon. So it's a book that I'm doing with James Robinson. He is writing it, and it's amazing. Um, we came up with it together, but he took it and made it. We came up with the concept, and then he wrote this incredible story. And so it's called Rogue's Kingdom, and we're going to try and make it as long a running series as we possibly can.
So that would be the one that had the RK for the cover that you sent, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll give out. There it is.
Yeah, Rogue's Kingdom. That's my inks for the first cover. It's a wraparound cover, and
go ahead.
I was gonna say it's a fantastic story. I love. If I wasn't drawing it, I would be buying it because it's just so much. James has written the most incredible story ever. It's so good.
It makes me curious. I mean, it definitely makes me want to know what's going to happen.
Right.
Hollis, we've got 2 comments from Cartoon Commotion. If you could throw those up. There is. Who doesn't remember the Spectacular Spider-Man is an Unfortunate Soul?
It was a really great show. I thought that they did an amazing job. First off, Sean Galloway was a fantastic choice to do the designs. His character designs are fun and lively, and they're just really energetic, and they're great designs. The show is really good.
And then he's got a second one down here, and he's talking. Okay, he's talking. Obviously, he is a GI Joe fan,
right? Yeah, so, I think they released the smaller episodes. I forget what station it was on, and then combined them into a movie.
Okay.
Oh no, but it is not for kids. It's like the combat is pretty intense, and it's pretty scary.
Oh, that's actually a good thing to discuss.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So now, first off, I moved to the comments a little quick. Where can you go? Where do you go for your Kickstarter project, or where can they find it?
So the Kickstarter is done, and people will be getting the people who supported us will be getting their comics relatively soon, and then so that first issue is gone. However, when we do the second issue, which I'm working on now, we will make it available again. We'll make if people want to get the first issue, that's when you'll be able to get them.
And would they go to your website to do that?
Yeah, they'll go to. If you want to follow me on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, I'll make announcements there, or follow James Robinson. He makes announcements also. And then when we're ready to put the second book out, which should be in a couple months, then we will also make the first issue available again, so you can get both. So you're not lost, because we kind of print on demand, and we print a few extras, but we mostly just print the ones that people want. And then and we'll do that with every issue. Like, we'll always have the previous issues available if you want to jump on board.
Cool. Hollis, would you pull up another piece of art for us?
Oh, yeah, that's a dragon study that's going to be in Rogue's Kingdom.
I was about to wonder if it was Kitty Pryde's little dragon, Lockheed.
Oh, Lockheed, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he's in there somewhere in the back of my mind. But no, that's going to be in the next trade paperback of Rogues. We introduce some dragons.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And we'll get wait for we have another little piece of art to bounce up here. Let Hollis find us something.
Sure.
So we are coming up on we're coming up on the 45, or we're coming up on 45 minutes.
Okay.
So we'll bounce out a little bit so that people have time to close out. So, beautiful Wonder Man sketch.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, that's his old Christmas tree. I love that costume. A lot of people don't like it, but I mean, I like that one. Oh no, that's the one I designed.
Well, now let's talk about Wonder Man's costumes for a while. Mm-hmm. Okay, now you've got this costume, right? But you remember the where he went to the sunglasses and the jacket?
I love the safari jacket.
Yeah, I mean, wasn't that kind of like the wasn't that kind of like the Magnum PI era?
Well, one of the things I really like about Wonder Man, and I could talk about him for hours, is that his costumes, I think that they not only are interesting, and he's a reluctant hero in general. So I do think that there's always a level of complexity in his motivations and his character. For his earlier costumes, my favorite Wonder Man costume is the black one with just the red W on his chest. That to me is the best one. That's the one I used throughout most of my run on the book. And I gave him when I was leaving the book, I gave him an updated version, and I tried to go back to harken back to some of the other more complicated costumes that put the W and the M on there. And it's just because I thought that he had evolved a bit as a character. However, I think that was hubris on my part. The costume was fine. I didn't need to change it. But one of my all-time favorites is just the simple red and black of the safari costume. It's so not what a superhero would wear, but he's made purely of energy, right? He doesn't get hot or cold or tired or hungry. So on some level, it really doesn't matter what he wears. He could wear like a parka or a suit jacket or a bathing suit. Like it's still the same to him.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So now that's a pretty nice ruse cover sitting there.
Mm-hmm. That's when I moved to CrossGen, my original job was going to be the fill-in artist. At CrossGen, you did 10 issues a year, and then the other 2 issues were done by a regular fill-in artist. And that was my first gig there, and I did an issue of the Ruse and part of an issue of Crux before I moved on to Way of the Rat.
I enjoyed Ruse. I thought it was a good book.
Such a great book. I would love to see that as a TV show.
And Hollis, you want to roll over another piece for us, please? But yeah,
Ruse is a great book.
I mean, the fact that CrossGen didn't make it at the end of this just sad to me. Some of those books were wonderful.
I thought that I thought my book was fun. I liked doing a kung fu action adventure thing quite a bit, and I really enjoyed reading a lot of those other books. I thought Crux was a great book by Steve Epting. The El Corazon, the pirate one that he did with Chuck Dixon was amazing.
Who knew we needed a pirate?
Listen, I think it's a bummer that CrossGen didn't work out financially, because I think the mission statement of CrossGen, which is to do other kinds of comic books, they had a superhero version of stuff, but like to do other kinds of comics, to harken back to a broader base, like back in the day, because you used to have pulp comics, romance comics. You used to have all kinds of comics in every genre. And at CrossGen, we really tried to do that. We had some horror stuff and some sci-fi stuff and some spy stuff. And I think that,
in the Watchmen, and Who Watches the Watchmen,
mm-hmm.
What's the comic book? The comic book is a pirate comic book,
right?
Because exactly. I mean, who's going to read a superhero comic book when you've got
real superheroes,
Dr. Manhattan walking around?
Exactly. Yeah. So I think that it's a shame, and I often lament that CrossGen didn't work, because as much as I'm not a huge Florida fan, I loved my time there. I got to hang out with some amazing creators and just develop some lifelong friendships and make some really cool comics.
Is there any project, because we showed a storyboard, but we didn't really talk about that much. But what about your work on Young Justice?
So Young Justice was that's a fun show. That's a crazy show. Like the first season, the pace of that show is frenetic. Like it was really a good time to draw all those different characters, and the storylines were complicated and complex and interesting. It was a really interesting show to work on. I'm glad that I got a chance to do it.
And now that I'm thinking about it, because when I first met you, and I was like, I lamented over what did I want to. We stood there quite a while I debated what I wanted to have you sketch,
right?
And I came up with the Galactus.
Right.
And now that I'm sitting here thinking about Young Justice, and I'm like, he had water swords.
Oh yeah, super.
He had water swords.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, it's like, okay, next time I see you at a show,
you're gonna get an Aqualad. Yeah.
I'm getting an Aqualad. I want water swords.
I mean, he's a cool character. He's a super fun character. But I mean, they're all fun. Miss Martian was great to draw in that book or that series. And plus, not only did you get to draw, the Teen Titans and the Young Justice and those characters, like I got to draw all the Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. I got to draw all that stuff in there.
Yeah, because they all showed up.
They're all part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. That's just way cool.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about Transformer Prime, the All Star Superman, which, oh my gosh, dude, that one just resonates with me. It's such a good. And we talked about Boondocks and Brave and the Bold, and
Mm-hmm.
you've got a lot of stuff under your belt, man.
Like I said, I've been very lucky. I've been able to bounce around. Like, one of the things that I was surprised at was so much fun is I got to do some storyboards on the Mike Tyson show, that cartoon with the pigeon. I happened to be I was just in the, so when I worked at Warner Brothers, I was there for a while, and sometimes in the middle of the night, someone comes by with a deadline of some kind. They're like, "Oh, we need this soon," and so I got to do a large part of the opening for Mike Tyson, like when he runs, when he punches a Tyrannosaurus, and when he does a bunch of other stuff. I got to do the storyboards for that,
Oh,
and that's
okay.
just because I would happen to be sitting there. That's, I mean, so we're just incredibly lucky.
Okay, cool beans.
Yeah.
Well, now, is there any projects that you want to tackle? I mean, either corporate or personal. Because I mean, you make more money on your personal.
Oh yeah, sure you do. Yeah. I would love. I mean, there's tons of characters I haven't touched yet at Marvel and DC. And Dark Horse. I would love somebody to do like a Hellboy thing. I love Hellboy. Love that character. But right now I'm mostly just focused on Rogue's Kingdom. Rogue's Kingdom has everything. I got dragons and monsters and sword fighting and cool cities and crazy landscape. So I mean, I have all this stuff that I really want to do, and I'm going to be on that for a long time.
Well, and as we come up, I mean, we're approaching where I have to kind of do our mandatory cutoffs.
Sure.
But what is your schedule going to be? Or you got any shows upcoming or anything that we need to throw out? And
That's a good question. I don't think I have anything at the moment. I just got back in November from Stockholm, and and hopefully this year I might be able to do some more traveling and some more shows, but nothing's locked down yet.
okay, so anyone that wants you're available
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
please, yeah. If if there's any shows out there that want to have me come be a guest, just contact me. I'm on Facebook. Like I said, Jeff Johnson, Johnsonverse on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. I'm pretty easy to get a hold of.
Okay. Well, if Hollis, I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you in
Oh, it's
this
been great. It's been great catching up,
this
man.
hour.
Yeah.
So if Hollis would let us close out our discussion and run the final bumpers for the charity, I'll bid you a good night.
All
Or
right, my
actually,
friend.
for you, it's still afternoon because
Yep.
you're on
Yep.
that West Coast time.
Yep. I'm going back to work.
Yeah. Okay. Jeff, it has been a pleasure talking with you this hour, and we hope to see you again in the near future.
All right. Good luck, Carlin.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All
Have
right.
a great afternoon.
All right. Bye, everybody.
The Multiverse Fundraiser is partnering with Comic Books for Kids to raise money for their cause. Their mission is to provide comic books to children in hospitals and cancer centers across the United States, Canada, and the UK. We believe in the importance of providing stories that promote hope and bravery to kids who are facing things that are scarier than any supervillain. And we truly believe in this cause. To donate, you can either go to our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/The Multiverse Fundraiser or directly to comicbooksforkids.org.